Next is George Kunz. George is another example of a great NFL player who has been overlooked by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. There are a few offensive linemen who have the resume that George does. George attended the University of Notre Dame. During his era, he was called the most dominant offensive lineman in college football. He was the starter at right offensive tackle on the 1966 national championship team. George was named team co-captain in 1968 and ended up being named consensus All-American. George was a first-round pick of the Atlanta Falcons in the 1969 NFL Draft. This career absolutely took off. George came back from injury in 1971 and was named All-Pro again. He would be named All-Pro every year until 1977. He would also not miss a game until 1975. George was traded to the Baltimore Colts before the 1975 season. In 8 fully healthy seasons that he played in, he was an All-Pro each of those times. He dominated his opponents point blank. There is no other way to describe his career. He was one of the greatest players to ever play his position, and he should be in Canton, Ohio. The Gridiron Greats tonight are honored to induct him into the class of 2015. Ladies and gentlemen, George Kunz.
You know, when you get together at these gatherings, one of the great things is you get to see people that you've known, you've admired, you're friends with. And Joe DeLamalore and I have spent some time together. Dave Wilcox I've admired for a long time. Tom Mack I put up with. But I still respect him. As a matter of fact, I was a Ram fan until they drafted him in the first round some years ago. But Tom and I have known each other a long time, and we're used to this kind of banter. Well, this morning, I had a privilege of sitting down and talking a little bit with Dave and getting to know his wife Merle a little better. What's interesting about this is my wife and I met in Atlanta years ago, right after I was drafted. Had the opportunity to marry her and took it. Our wedding was December 21st, 1969. And if you know the almanac, you know that's the day with the least amount of sunlight, or National Flashlight Day. So that was also the last game of the season that we had in Atlanta. We played the Minnesota Vikings, and that year they had lost their first game, won 12 in a row, and we were coming to Atlanta, ready to go to the Super Bowl, and we beat them. I was so afraid to tell anybody I was getting married because Norm Van Brocken was our coach, and I didn't tell anyone except my best man, who was Malcolm Snyder, who was our guard and a great friend of mine. After the game was over, we won, everybody was delirious. I let everybody know that we were getting married that night. And my wife was raised in a strict Southern Baptist house. So we're getting married in a Catholic church in Atlanta. And half of Gainesville's population, the Baptist half, came and occupied her side of the church. My teammates and their girlfriends, and this time Merle was dating one of my teammates, attended that wedding. And now, 45 years later, it's great to see Merle again. So anyway, Dave, I want to thank you for bringing her, because that's been a long time coming. Now, about tonight, you know, if you're an offensive lineman, chances are you're the last person, if you have any notoriety at all, that you're going to be the last person that the press is going to talk to. And that's a good thing, because it used to be that the only time you got any publicity was when you held somebody in a ball game and they gave your name and number. And that was the way it was for a long period of time. Before I started playing football, when I was a junior in high school, I sent out, at that time you could get postcards for 3 cents a card. My mother was big on my going to college. I got 200 postcards for $6. And I bought an almanac and I sent a postcard to every school that I thought I might be interested in, 200 schools. I sent one to University of Pittsburgh, better known as Pitt. When I got that brochure back, on the cover was a silhouette of Mike Ditka. And I thought, you know what? If the school thinks that much about him, and he gives him that kind of reputation, I started to think that he had to have a lot of responsibility to make good on what that school was saying they were all about. Seeing that the first time taught me the difference in the importance of notoriety or reputation and responsibility. And Coach Ditka has never let those two escape him. To this day, for what he's doing, there are a lot of guys that fall through the cracks, regardless of the collective bargaining agreement, whatever agreements are there. Guys fall through the cracks. And organizations like this help those folks get better. So I'm delighted to be here, not only because of Coach Ditka, but because of what the organization represents. Lastly, I think we owe it not only to the guys who've played, but to the guys who will follow us in play, to know that football will take care of its own. My wife and I tried to raise our son, and I think we're successful in terms of teaching him reputation and responsibility go arm in arm. And we are delighted with the fact that at the age of 39, he has turned out to be a great young man, not so young anymore, but absolutely a better person than I am. And for that reason, I'm very proud of the kid we have. But there are other guys out there, young men, and I wanted to introduce two. They'll stand up there in the back. Bo and Jacob are two kids that are playing high school football. And these guys would appreciate. They're table number 33. I can't see it because of the lights. But if you get a chance to go up and say hello, I know they'd appreciate it. They're just starting out, and it's important for them to know that football takes care of its own. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Before we introduce our next performer and former player, I just thought it was the right time to do this because of the Raiders' presence in the room tonight. And there's a lot of members, current members of the Gridiron Greats Hall of Fame, but I'd like to acknowledge David Hum. David, we love you, David. For all the great alumni here, a round of applause, everyone, for all the alumni who are here, including David Hum.